Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming for today's program. My name is Yang Wang. Today is the last session for for the investment discussion group for this year. We're going to take the summer off. That's to say we have no program in July and August. We'll restart our program again in September. Before we start, I'm going to give a brief introduction to our program's moderator, Kristen Jacks. Kristen Jacks is a financial educator and the founder of Money in Your 20s. Kristen studied financial planning at the Boston University's Center for Professional Education. She started her career at Kiplinger's Personal Finance magazine and later worked at the Mutual Fund magazine. Kristen is a graduate of Duke University. Today, Kristen will talk about cryptocurrency. Now let me turn the screen to Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you, Young, and thanks always to Greenwich Library for hosting these investing discussion groups. It's really wonderful how they support business topics, finance topics. It's just a fantastic library. So tonight we're talking about cryptocurrency, and before we start, especially because this is a very volatile investment, we are going to do a quick disclaimer that this webinar is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide investment advice. None of the investments mentioned in this discussion group are recommended. Many are not suitable for the average investor. If you plan to invest, you are urged to consult an advisor who is aware of your unique needs and situation. Okay, wow. Quite a week last week. I mean, this is a really timely webinar because the SEC finally came and lowered the boom on cryptocurrencies, on crypto exchanges. It was not a huge surprise, but they really, they did not hold back. I mean, there have been discussions among the players in the crypto space, the really smart players in the crypto space that asked the SEC to go sort of easy, to not think of every cryptocurrency as a security, leave some things, out of their scope. And that didn't really happen. The SEC kind of came on strong. So immediately after the SEC announced that they were insisting that some of the most popular cryptocurrencies, which are unregulated, so which have been not following SEC rules, they are saying that those are absolutely securities. They are saying that these crypto exchanges are absolutely acting as brokers. There's no wiggle room. They better get on board. They better start following SEC rules. So this is pretty exciting. And I have a Robinhood account, not because I recommend Robinhood, but just because my business is Money in Your 20s. I wrote the book Money in Your 20s. It's very important for me to stay on top of what younger people are doing with their finances. And Robinhood is a good place to see what's going on, and also where some people purchase cryptocurrencies. And I was astonished. I went on Robinhood and I was checking the prices of the different cryptocurrencies after this. And within a day of this announcement, Robinhood said on the, so if you look at the price of cryptocurrencies, you go to trade cryptocurrencies on Robinhood, for each cryptocurrency that was impacted, Robinhood said, we are no longer going to support this cryptocurrency. They're just going to take it off. And that is astonishing. I mean, really, that's almost like going to your broker and finding out that they're not going to sell you Apple stock if you want it. So lots went on last week. So Robinhood announced they're not going to support Solana, Cardano, Polygon. These are some of the most popular cryptocurrencies. And based on this, not specifically Robinhood, but because of how strong the SEC is being in their action, these popular cryptocurrencies declined over 20% on the news. So it's very hard to see kind of the small detail, but like Solana was down, 27%, Cardano 24%, Polygon 24%, and they bounce around. So it hasn't really gotten worse than this, but this is definitely what's going on. Now, surprisingly, the two best known cryptocurrencies, the two largest cryptocurrencies, the cryptocurrencies that have been around the longest, really were unscathed. The SEC is not coming after them. The SEC, and this is I don't want to get into the weeds on legality, but to call Ethereum, say Ethereum is safe, it's not a cryptocurrency, but Solana is, I mean, it gets really murky. So that's a discussion for another time, but right now, Bitcoin and Ethereum are not being tagged as securities, and they were really only down 3%. So this is kind of an interesting time right now with what's going on with these cryptocurrencies, especially because cryptocurrencies are a global phenomenon. The exact same currency is being traded all over the globe, and most of the trading of cryptocurrencies happens outside of the United States. So it's kind of surprising there could be a 20% decline just based on what the United States is doing. All right, so, but before we get too far afield, let's figure out what is our best use of 1 hour, because I could write a book on cryptocurrencies. It's a vast topic. We could talk for hours, but I really want to help you feel more empowered to understand cryptocurrencies and to see if they would be suitable for something you should consider. I am not telling you to invest in anything. I'm not telling you to avoid anything. I'm just trying to educate you. So what I find with people who are skeptical of cryptocurrencies is that there's really just a lack of understanding. I mean, people have seen the price action around cryptocurrencies, certainly the price action around Bitcoin, and they've said this is bizarre. I mean, it goes from nothing, raises up to 68,000, drops back down to 26,000. I mean, what is this? This is just a crazy ride for the younger generation. And I totally get that because the speculation drove cryptocurrencies through the roof. So like, be on your guard. Certainly don't follow the crowd. Thank goodness, hopefully no one listening right now bought when Bitcoin was 68,000. But really I'd like, if you get something out of tonight, it's that you have really, a really deep understanding of cryptocurrencies so that you can decide for yourself if they have merit in the future. So we're going to do that. We're going to also understand the why behind the most popular cryptocurrencies, because there are thousands. So, why do some rise to the top and some are just obsolete? Also, you can't talk about cryptocurrency without talking about speculation, because this is our investing discussion group. But a lot of times what we end up talking about are the things that people are saying they're investing, but they're getting lured into things that are speculation. So we really have to be distinct about like what's investing, what's saving, what's speculating. And then if you'll indulge me, if people are going to throw out, the baby with the bathwater on cryptocurrency, I would like to just say, pause for a second and don't be overconfident on the investments that you think are safe and are good, because America's favorite investment, the S&P 500 fund, in my view, has become very speculative for the reason that the S&P 500 is cap weighted, which means that like the companies that are already big take a bigger share. And as those companies that are big get bigger, they take a bigger share of the S&P 500. I'm going to talk about that. So if you're like, whoa, cryptocurrency, way too speculative, way too weird, not for me, but then you're like, I'm going to be safe and be in the S&P 500 fund. That's a lesson in like, do you even understand what you own at this point? And then finally, talk about the best resources if you want to learn more, and then get into questions and discussions, because this is supposed to be a discussion group, but I just want to make sure you feel like you're armed with the basic information. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. I mean, the people I meet who don't, who say, I don't get it, I don't want it, cryptocurrencies, isn't that all a scam? Isn't it a Ponzi scheme? And I'd like to just posit that you don't understand crypto because you can't relate to the problem that it solved. I mean, once I understood crypto, I was pretty fascinated by the problem that Bitcoin solved. And the Satoshi Nakamoto, who nobody knows if that's his real name or it's a he or it's a group of people, there was a white paper published under that name. And that was the beginning of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created and this white paper was circulated, and this Satoshi Nakamoto solved all the problems that were around digital currency. And it was this huge innovation for the people who had wanted that problem solved. So if you don't understand crypto, it's pretty much because you don't understand there was a problem, and you don't understand how fascinating it is that all these different problems got solved elegantly, really elegantly. Okay, so let's just talk about relatable problems, right? So, back in the day, if you got into an accident or had a surgery, or, this is the, in the, like, even, not even that long ago, I mean, just before World War II, basically, you could have a surgery or get into an accident, have a cut, and get an infection, from some kind of a bacteria, and you might actually die from that. And we can't even relate today because that just doesn't happen. And there was one person when I was researching this and trying to give penicillin as an example of, like, relatable problem, people are dying from an infectious disease, amazing breakthrough, penicillin. I've studied this, this one video this woman said more soldiers died in World War II from infection than from the actual battle, right? Than from being wounded. It wasn't the bullets, it was the infection. So this used to be a huge problem of, you have an open wound, an infection gets into your body, the bacteria take over and they kill you. And penicillin comes along and literally just eradicates the bacteria. So it's, these infections are not a death sentence. I mean, we don't even think about that anymore. It's unthinkable to us that someone is going to die of, of just, a surgery just from an infection. So that was a huge, it was a really relatable problem. People were so excited about the solution, and everyone could wrap their mind around it. So that's one example. Another example is air conditioning, right? So in 1902, air conditioning was invented, and it was actually invented for a business purpose. So, I mean, a lot of people were realizing that heat and humidity it's a problem. It's hard to work. It's hard to be productive. But specifically, this, this one, it was a magazine publisher actually, was like, we cannot operate our business because these magazine pages start to wrinkle, the ink starts to smear. I mean, we're going to be out of business if someone can't solve this problem of just keeping the humidity out of the air, keeping the temperature down. And then, of course, Willis Carrier, actually with his scientific methods and coils and cooling solutions and all this other stuff and fans, he solved it and he created the air conditioner. So these are very relatable problems of, like, well, how do you pull humidity out of the air effectively? And how do you fight disease? And how do you do all of these things? Okay, so think about relatable problems. Now think about, is fiat currency a problem? So it's never been a problem for me. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't care. But for a lot of people, especially outside of the United States, with governments that are not careful with their currency or don't have the credibility of the United States, there is apparently, had been tons of discussion about the problems with fiat currency, especially the currencies that got devalued. And then in the tech sphere, in the people who could foresee a world, the gaming world, the internet world, the connected world, they said now it's really a problem because we don't have a borderless currency. You have all these governments that are centralized, they're controlling everything. It was really interesting that all of these people were saying fiat currencies are a problem. And it's really hard to have a digital currency, because if you think about being digital, if you think about being online, like if I take a picture and I want to share it with someone, it's digital. I have the picture and now I send it to someone, they have the picture. So basically sharing things that are digital means you're doubling it or quadrupling it, or, you're just making more of it. It's almost like counterfeiting if you think about money. So the thought was, well, how could we possibly do this? How could there be a digital currency that is actually unique? That you could limit the number of it. I could have it and give it to you. And that means I no longer have it and you have it. And there's no disputing that. There's no doubling of it. And how could it be borderless? And who could be in charge? And how could it actually be decentralized? So a lot of people wanted this problem solved. And this was something that I knew nothing about before cryptocurrency. And I live in the United States. I wasn't worried. Maybe I worry about inflation, but I didn't think it was a problem. And I didn't need a currency. I don't travel that much. I mean, so to understand cryptocurrency, you have to get on board with all the people who think a fiat currency has a lot of problems. And especially you have to get out of the United States mindset, because where cryptocurrencies have taken off, especially in Asia, it's all of these issues about a currency maybe you can't trust, or a government you don't want them to see what you're doing. So there was this problem that needed to be solved, but it was hard to solve, because really, how do you make money digital? You know, it's really, you know, how could I possibly have something electronic that's unique to me and give it to you, and now only you have it? Because up until then, when we've shared documents, photos, anything, it's always me just duplicating it, right? So these are interesting problems. And Bitcoin was the ingenious solution to the list of problems that people were trying to solve, to this just the one problem of we need to have a digital currency that is decentralized, that is digital and not a copy, that is borderless, that's anonymous, that's peer-to-peer without a middleman. There was this hope for a true digital currency. And Satoshi Nakamoto, who that might just be a pseudonym, it could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be a group of people, but there was this white paper that came out that was an elegant solution to the problem of a digital currency. And this digital currency appears on the scene, and it seems to really work. It seems to truly solve all these problems, check all these boxes. And the people who cared about that stuff got really, really excited. And a lot of these people are, you know, it's global. Not people in the United States, it's people who are very tech savvy. And, but the thing is, it's legitimate. It's not a scam. It definitely got too much hype, but it's not a scam, and it's ingenious. So it's an ingenious innovation. So that's what you have to understand about cryptocurrencies. Digital currency, ingenious innovation, solved all the problems that people thought could arise when you try to make a digital currency. And the technology behind it is this breakthrough technology of blockchain. Apparently there had been some blockchain before, but I'm not going to get into the weeds, but how this Satoshi Nakamoto arranged it so that it's a distributed database. Some people call it a distributed ledger, that, you know, anyone can participate, no particular person is in charge, and it's also immutable. So like as the blockchain grows, you can't go back and change anything. It's really fascinating stuff. I'm not going to get too much into the technical, but if you wanted like a really interesting sort of like regular example of a distributed database or a distributed blockchain, if I live in a village and I'm trying to transact with, you know, I'm just in a simple village and I, you know, bake bread, but somebody else, you know, goes fishing, and I want to switch, you know, fish for bread, or I want to, you know, get fish later. I'll give bread now, get fish later. Instead of having this agreement just with the person who's going to give me the fish, imagine I just call out to everybody in the village, okay, everybody understands I'm giving this bread now, I'm owed 4 fish later. And if everybody wrote down, everyone's hearing the same thing, everybody writes down the same thing, that's sort of a distributed ledger, a distributed understanding of what is the real transaction. And that's really what blockchain is doing. So it's not, there's no central command that has one database that only the central authority can see. The transactions, everybody can see them. So it's open, it's transparent, and it's hard for people to cheat because, you know, everybody knows what the transaction is, and you can't go back and change it. So this was a breakthrough technology, breakthrough situation, and all the cryptocurrencies after that have become popular are really part of this innovation. So there's been a lot of hype, a lot of speculation. Cryptocurrencies have run up in price and then crashed back down. But there's always speculation and bubbles around innovation. That's not unusual. It doesn't mean the innovation is a scam or wrong. So I want to help you understand the why behind the most popular cryptocurrencies. So if you're following along so far and you get that there was this problem that we didn't, you know, that people thought we needed a borderless digital anonymous currency, decentralized, and all these people are excited that that's what happened. Bitcoin comes along, blockchain is the breakthrough. Well, then people start to pile into that space and they say, if that's the breakthrough, I want to improve on it, right? So you start with Bitcoin, and then all the popular cryptocurrencies now are tackling what is seen as, like not a flaw, but like, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and how do you make it better, right? How do you build off of what it is? And certainly you've probably heard that Bitcoin, to mine Bitcoin, it uses a lot of energy, right? And so people are critical of that. Like, can't we have cryptocurrency that's safe and digital and borderless and decentralized and all those things, but uses a lot less energy? So then you have, a team of people who create a cryptocurrency that do that. So that's one, and I want to say that's Polygon, but I might be wrong. I get them mixed up. I always have to look at my notes. Which one's Cardano? Which one's Polygon? Then you also have the fact that, Bitcoin's older, and then you have Ethereum comes along. Now, Ethereum is an innovation, and I'm not going to get into smart contracts because that would really confuse people, but Ethereum does more than Bitcoin. So there, in Bitcoin, it's just a currency, it's just a transaction, it's just an amount. But in Ethereum, you can do more. You can have smart contracts. I'm not going to get into it, too confusing. But then people looked at Ethereum and said, yeah, but Ethereum, you can't do that many transactions, at once. So we need a cryptocurrency that is like Ethereum, but you can do a lot of transactions. So what I'm getting at is, if you take the time to understand what a cryptocurrency, what Bitcoin is, and blockchain, and then everything that's coming later that's popular is an innovation. So faster transaction speed, using less energy. Then if you look at all of the wild rides of these currencies, and then people say, well, then that's not a store of value. So what we need are stable currencies. So they create stable coins. It all makes a lot of sense if you start with the first problem that needed to be solved, and then you build off of that the problem did get solved, but it could maybe be solved even better. And that's where these popular cryptocurrencies come in. So, problem, solution, improvements. Okay, so the newer popular cryptocurrencies like Solana, Cardano, Polygon are innovations. And if you think back to, other innovations, other, technology innovations, you realize that, people thought America Online and BlackBerry were going to be the winners, and they were the absolute losers, right? So Yahoo's not that much of a winner, but Apple's a huge winner. So this is where you get into like, okay, well, am I really going to use investing dollars in a space that I don't really understand who's going to be the winner? And especially if you're not tech savvy, you might not have even good instincts. So, it's not that cryptocurrency is bad or a scam, it's that it's in its infancy, and who knows where this is going and who knows who's going to win. So that's the way I would invite you to think about it. And before you dismiss, that there's a problem, it got solved, and then the solutions, are all these improvements, before you dismiss all of this, I want you to consider, we've got some wacky things going on. I mean, like Diet Coke, in my opinion, tastes terrible. Right? Nobody, when Coke first became a popular product, if there had never been Coke and someone tried to give you a Diet Coke, that would never have taken off, right? You needed Coke to become a phenomenon. I mean, Coke was just so wildly popular, just kind of, Coke became America. And then someone said, oh, well, we don't want the sugar, so let's tweak it and then do this. And then you have this Diet Coke craze. So who knows? You could have the exact same thing happening with cryptocurrency, where something that seems like not even that good an innovation to you off of Bitcoin does become the dominant thing. Stranger things have happened. Also, barcodes versus QR codes. I mean, I can't keep up with the technology. Like I'm finally used to barcodes, and now they're obsolete. So who knows what's going to go mainstream? And also, when you hear that something is not working, or it's too hyped, or it's dead, people thought Netflix had imploded when they gave up on their model of shipping, movie CDs, and now they're, this dominant player. So innovation is very hard to predict. Okay, so obviously innovation, opportunity, risk, you know, this sounds, no matter what, it sounds like we're still getting into the speculative side of things, not the core investing side of things. So let's look at what that means. And I always like to use this slide to say, okay, we've got saving, right? Which is just, you know, nice and safe, totally guaranteed, right? As long as you know what you're doing and you go to a bank that is FDIC insured and you open a savings account and you go over $250,000, you know, your money is safe and you're going to get a certain amount of interest, and hopefully you do your homework and you figure out which banks have the best CDs and the best rates and things like that. Okay, super safe. Then the next step over, you know, is investing, which means that you're taking on more risk. There are no guarantees. There's no guarantee that Starbucks is going to continue to be a well-run company. There's no guarantee. A lot of people would say Disney is no longer a well-run company. But still, like, these are really beloved brands and they have a good product and they have good cash flow and they have profit and things like that. So in the investing world, you lose the guarantee, you're taking on risk. These stocks could go down, but you know, people engage in investing because they're willing to take the risk. They think, instead of making 4% on my money, I'd rather try to make 8%, and this is how I'm going to do it. And then you get into the speculative space, which is not the same as gambling. You know, it's not gambling because there's usually a rationale. You know, like some people really did think Carvana was going to change the auto industry. And then some people really believe that cryptocurrencies are the future. So but they understand that it's very risky. You just have to look at the price action to see that it's very, very risky. So for now, I would say that cryptocurrencies are still in the speculative phase. But a lot of things are riskier than you might imagine. So this is our last show for this season. We're starting up again next September. And I talked about this last time. We did a webinar about being diversified. And I was like, you know, if you're in America's favorite investment, which is the S&P 500 fund, you are not diversified. And in my opinion, it's gotten very close to being speculative. And I'll tell you why. So this is America's favorite investment, right? The S&P 500 fund. Isn't it wonderful to just own a piece of all these great companies like Kellogg and Walmart and Coca-Cola and Tesla and Hershey and Netflix and Starbucks and Citi and all? I mean, it makes me feel good just looking at this slide, right? I feel like my money is being deployed effectively betting on America's largest companies. That's what the S&P 500 does, or at least that's what people think it does. And that's not what it does. This is what it does. So the S&P 500 fund, unless you specifically shop for one that is not cap weighted, you know, 98% of the time, if you're going into an S&P 500 fund, you're going into a cap weighted fund, which means whichever are the biggest companies, they have to have a bigger share than the smaller companies. So they look at market capitalization, and the bigger companies have a bigger share than the smaller companies. Well, here's the problem. Technology has gone on a tear. It is white hot. It is so outside of anything that seems rational to me. Apple is enormous, Tesla's enormous, Facebook's enormous, Amazon's enormous, Nvidia is enormous. Okay, well, a lot of people, when they went into America's favorite investment, they are not the same people who would make a huge bet on technology, right? Especially because the PEs of these companies are sky high. I mean, I just don't know how you justify it. I mean, you could buy like 9,300 million dollar companies, or you could have Apple. Like I would rather have 9,300 million dollar companies than Apple. But this is something that people don't understand. So they think that they're getting General Motors and the Hartford and Avis and Target and all these things. And they're not, because those companies are so small that they're just like a tiny fraction of the S&P 500. What you're mostly getting is technology. So, you know, if you didn't know that, now you know. I think there's speculation in a lot of places that you're not necessarily expecting it, because I wouldn't be surprised if these tech companies lost a third of their value. I think that could be, at the levels they are now, I don't think that's too strange. And so people are not thinking that the S&P 500 could actually do that. Okay, so there you have it. That's my perspective on the cryptos and on everything. And if you really want to understand crypto better, you absolutely want to listen to the Unchained podcast. So that's Forbes actually hosts that podcast. And if you go back to the earlier episodes, they really kind of hold your hand. Did somebody have a question about the Unchained podcast? I kind of heard we're about to do questions and chat and stuff like that. But I would say the Unchained podcast is brilliant. And there are a bunch of podcasts in there where they'll say specifically like, we want to get you caught up, or this is the cryptocurrency 101 episode, or we're going to explain it all to you. So you could just scroll through and especially go back to the ones that are, even before the pandemic, like 2019, 2018. I think it's really interesting to go to the SEC website and go to their news and the speech that Gensler is the SEC chairman, and everything that he's saying about cryptocurrency, he's not saying it's bad. He's not saying it's garbage. He's saying it's a security. Like there's no different, like it's Apple stock and Ethereum might as well be the same thing. Like you're making a bet on a future of an endeavor. And the crypto people push back and say no, because we're decentralized, we're not companies, things like that. But I think the SEC's in the right place. So definitely the Unchained podcast, definitely the SEC. And then finally, Andreessen Horowitz is the venture capital firm that has been the most active that I can tell in the whole cryptocurrency space. And they have a really amazing website that drills into like everything they're doing with cryptocurrency, what they think is promising. And, they put their money where their mouth is, or they put their clients' money where their mouth is. So if you really want to understand crypto and what might be good for the future, those are the best resources. Okay, so here we are. Hope it made some sense. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, I can ask questions too, but I think we should kind of discuss, do cryptocurrencies belong? When you think about all the investments out there, where are you? Would you consider it? Would you not consider it? What are you doing? You can, if you're shy, you can put something in the chat. Or you could unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so thank you for the information that you shared. Me personally, I've been trading and investing in the crypto space for about 3 years now. So of course, I guess my opinion may be biased, but I do think, cryptos are worth investing in, because really, I'm on the same boat as you when you were talking about once you start to understand the technology behind it, you really start to see how valuable it is. And that was the same boat I was on, because back in 2020 when I first started, looking into the space, and I thought it was a scam, because I didn't understand it, and I thought it was, it was a Ponzi scheme and all this stuff. And then once I started to actually learn and take the time to understand what was behind it and how blockchain actually worked, I was like, this is actually a valuable technology. But one thing that I am worried about, I guess, because you mentioned like the SEC, do you think that increased regulation would hurt innovation in the States? Because I see other countries like in China, India, even countries like South Africa, they're like moving forward with like, crypto efforts on a government level. And it kind of seems like we're like slacking in the US. So I don't know, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, what's so interesting is, because cryptocurrencies are global, if there's more regulation in the United States, I mean, maybe that knocks out some of the investors in the United States. Like, will a cryptocurrency go down because American investors, like Robinhood, will not support certain cryptocurrencies. So if the only way I was buying cryptocurrency was through my Robinhood account, and now I can't, so it's kind of affecting the supply and demand. But there's so much demand outside of the United States, I'm not sure that it should bring the price of the popular cryptocurrencies down that much. Where it's going to kill innovation, and people have said this about New York. So you have dual sovereignty in the United States. You have what's happening at the federal level, and then you have what's happening at the state level. And in what I've listened to in podcasts, not only is the SEC coming on strong, but New York state regulators are coming on strong. And what they're saying is no entrepreneur in their right mind would ever start a blockchain company in New York State. And so you're killing innovation. Regulation is important because we don't want people being scammed. I mean, the good part of regulation is making sure that, whatever these endeavors are, that they're not fraudulent. I mean, they're supposed to be real. But then if you make it too strict, then the entrepreneurs that might participate, they're not going to participate here. They're going, and this happened actually, when China was cracking down on cryptocurrencies, the guy who runs, I want to say it's Binance, at the time was the largest crypto exchange. I mean, it's technology. It's like you just take your servers and get out of there. And so now China can't control you. So the countries that squeeze too tight, I think they lose their chance of that entrepreneurial spirit and just the business that's created around entrepreneurship. That would be my take. If you have, give Taylor Swift props for realizing it's a security. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that Taylor Swift has waded into the SEC viewpoint. I think, it's not the same as a stock. And they're not saying it is. They're saying, it's not just that the SEC regulates stocks and bonds and things like that. It's an investment contract. So that's kind of what they're hanging their hat on, that it's an investment contract. It's a little tricky, this idea that it's decentralized though. So I think the crypto creators are pushing back because they're saying, yeah, I created it and now my hands are off the wheel because it's supposed to be decentralized. It's supposed to be run by a consensus, and it's supposed to be open source and things like that. So when I read an annual report and they list all of the executives in a company, and those executives are responsible for saying what the risk factors are for the security. I mean, it's like, well, how do you do that if it's decentralized? So it's a little confusing. But I'm so curious, Devin, not that you want to give investing advice, but are you in the actual cryptocurrencies themselves, or are you also looking beyond to the businesses and which businesses? I mean, well, no, Fidelity is not a good example because it's not a publicly traded company, but are you also looking at the publicly traded companies that are going to be at the forefront of crypto and trying to invest in any of those?
Not necessarily. I mainly focus on the cryptocurrencies themselves. So lately I've been more focused on longer term investments. So last year I bought a hardware wallet to store my crypto on so it can be off the exchanges. So if things go down, I can still own my cryptocurrency because I don't trust the exchanges. So especially after the FTX
you don't
incident.
Trust them because you think they're fraudulent? You don't trust them because you think FTX, they might disappear with your money?
Right. And they could, and because you technically don't own those private keys until you get it off of the exchange, technically. So if it goes down, then your money is gone and your crypto is gone.
Right, and that's the other part where you would think that a Coinbase or a Robinhood, these are reputable American companies, even though they're not. So the SIPC rules, so the brokerage rules that would say if I had a bunch of stocks in my brokerage account and all of a sudden my broker turned out to be fraudulent and disappeared, I'm insured. I will eventually get,
right.
I will get reimbursed. But that's not true of cryptocurrency. So but you would think well, Robinhood wouldn't dare. I mean, it's a publicly traded company. They're not just going to disappear overnight. Coinbase isn't just going to disappear overnight. but technically your money is not protected the way, it's just not SIPC protected.
Right, unless they come out with some sort of, more rules to that, then I would trust it more. It's just, because it's, like you mentioned, it's such a new space, I'd rather just have it, protected on an outside source than keep it on the exchange until things are more regulated and secure. But for now, I don't necessarily trust having it on there. This is my personal take. I don't know what everybody else wants to do, but.
And then what are you doing about the fact that if it's your private key and you lose it, it's gone forever?
Well, you have to take some personal accountability to store those. I keep things locked up in a safe. So, but if you lose that, then I don't know what you'll be out of luck. That's all I'm saying.
So Devin, do you, because I think it would, since it's unregulated, it would be legal for you to buy it for other people, like to be an authority, like in your community. Like, do you like collect money and then buy it for other people? I mean, right now that's legal.
No, I haven't done that. And I never really thought about that, to be honest.
It's probably too late because I think the SEC is trying to make sure that is illegal.
Yeah.
But, like, technically you could have been doing it. So we have a question in the chat. Down the line, can it be taken 100% under government rule, which we may not have access to it? Well, I mean, China did that, but China did it for a specific reason. I mean, look, we're all suspicious of China. China gets a really bad rap, and it was like, oh, they're, hampering people's freedoms again. But at the time they did it, the speculation was out of control. And like, nice, poor families were taking all of their savings and going into crypto. And that's really dangerous. So, China said no more crypto, none at all at a certain point in time. And then I think they've eased off of that, or at least you definitely can trade in Hong Kong and things like that. But would the United States ever do that? I don't think so. I just think that the United States is saying, if they're saying that certain cryptos, most of them are securities because they're investment contracts, which means they have to follow securities law, and the brokerages or they're exchanges, but the SEC is saying, no, you're really a brokerage, selling an unregistered security, which is against the law. So they're saying Coinbase and Robinhood and all these guys, they have to start following the brokerage rules, and they should only sell things that are actual securities. And so it's really just kind of making these investments fit the typical framework of how you would buy a stock or a bond, is my understanding. I don't think it would completely disappear. But that's a really good question. All right, do we have any other questions? And if you're shy, you can put them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to talk about next season for the investing discussion group. Okay, so next season, the idea is, and I'm going to go over this also for the people who watch this. So this, by the way, this lives. Let me go back to our slides. This lives. Okay, here on the Greenwich Library YouTube. When we do an investing discussion group, it lives on the Greenwich Library YouTube. And we've done some really good ones, like why did that stock move? If you don't understand the factors that move a stock price, I mean, sometimes it's macro, what's going on in the environment. Sometimes it's just the fundamentals, like the earnings or the lack of earnings of a company. So we've done that one. We did a really interesting one about real estate investing that went far, far beyond just flipping a house. So a lot of people don't know, especially if you're older and you've accumulated a lot of money in an IRA, your typical custodian of that IRA is like a Fidelity or a Schwab and whatever, and they're selling you mutual funds and stocks and bonds and things like that. But you don't have to have a typical custodian. If you have an IRA with a lot of money, you can switch custodians, and then you can go buy real estate that you think, like a fixer-upper, and you can fix it up with money from your IRA, and then you could grow the assets in your IRA account by making smart real estate decisions. A lot of people don't know that. So that was a really interesting one, the real estate investing one. I'm not telling you to do that. It's not investment advice. You can lose a lot of money in real estate. You can make mistakes. But anyway, all of these investing discussion group webinars live on the YouTube space for Greenwich Library. And next year, we want to make sure, so I'm going to go into this because even though there are only 15 people watching, they'll watch the video and then they'll weigh in. So we really want people to weigh in about next year. So we have 10, we have a session a month starting in September, going through June. So we have 10 sessions. So if there's something you really want to see discussed, we want to hear that. Our idea at this point, because it is the library, is to have really, really good investing books as a jumping off point. For example, Mary Childs wrote a book called The Bond King. It's really, really fascinating, all about sort of, bonds have come so far, so fast, like what goes on with them, how they can be traded, things like that. So that would be a great book to read to sort of get the history and kind of the drama behind some of the bonds. And then, so once you have your book and people read it, and then that's what begins the discussion, and then it kind of gets more in depth about bonds. Another one might be The Price You Pay for College, because college is a huge investment. A lot of people are, the reason they're in stocks is to make their money grow so that they can pay for college. And it turns out, if you read The Price That You Pay for College, that there are so many kind of unknown ways to really save on that college bill or really squeeze a lot of value out of your decision. And that people don't know about. They don't know about merit aid. They really don't know about how financial aid works. They really don't know scholarships in their area. So that even something like that could be like a really good choice. Or we could just do, strictly investing, A Random Walk Down Wall Street by Burton Malkiel of Princeton. That's like a perennial favorite. So we have a lot of books in mind that could be, or the Psychology of Money that has been on the bestseller list for, I think, a year now, maybe 2 years. And that is a fascinating book to really get into, why people do what they do with money. And that is another great jumping off point to get into like the behavioral finance side of investing. So we'd really love to hear from you. So here's like my email, kjacks@moneyinyour20s. Email me your feedback, email me what you want to hear, or I'm sure on when you made this reservation, you probably have Young Wong's email.
I'm going to type in my email.
Yeah, so Young, works for the library, and she's my boss basically.
We're working together.
And so she wants your feedback too, but we really want to make sure that next year you're hearing what you want to hear, you're getting what you want. I had one woman today take me aside. I went to Dogwood Books. If you haven't been to Dogwood Books, oh my gosh, it's so precious. It's inside Christ Church. Inside Christ Church, they run a whole gorgeous 2-level bookstore with great gifts and things like that. And they have a new manager, and they were having a social to welcome her. And they do really well selling my book, so I definitely wanted to go. And where was I going with this? Okay, Dogwood Books. What was I saying? Okay, never mind. I forgot.
Kristen,
yes.
When you say you would like to know what people would like to know,
that's what it was. Yes.
Could you give the AB cryptocurrency starting with the letter A? How do I first buy? Number 2, when do I use a key? Number 3, how will I know if it's making money or giving interest, or the ABCs for
Absolutely.
a starter?
Oh, that's a great question. So because I personally would trust Coinbase, so now you have Coinbase is like a publicly traded company, very reputable in the United States. You never have to worry about keys. I don't love Robinhood because I think they gamify things and they kind of lure kids. I call them kids. They lure young people in. So I'm not a huge fan, but technically if you had a Robinhood account, it's so easy. Honestly, I don't know that if you could actually see it, but if I just, here's my Robinhood account, you probably can't see it. And I'm like right here, hard to see. I'm just looking right at the cryptocurrencies. I mean, they have ticker symbols the way stocks have ticker symbols. So if you've ever done any online trading, like I'm looking right at Solana, I just tap on Solana and it's literally saying at the bottom, do you want to buy it? You know, and I could swipe up and buy it. And it says, well, do you want to buy $200 worth? Do you want to buy $500 worth? I mean, it's that simple. So these interfaces have become very, very, very easy. And what Devin was saying, the reason he doesn't want to do things like this is because there have been problems in this space, like the most famous being FTX, where people did give their money and they did sort of treat FTX like a normal brokerage, but it's unregulated and it turned out to be a mess. And so people's money, you know, their money has disappeared. Well, I don't really expect that to happen with Coinbase or Robinhood, where you can buy cryptocurrency. So if it were, I mean, I don't even know how to do the other thing. I mean, Devin could maybe explain how you would get a private wallet and keep track of your key and that stuff. That would be scary. I don't know how to do that. But I think you can fully trust Coinbase and Robinhood and buy your cryptocurrency that way. And certainly some younger person in your family could probably just show you, you know, how they do it. I mean, you just do it online, just the same way you buy a stock.
Once you did that, let's say you did that and it was really easy. And then what would be the follow through or the follow up to it? What would you expect?
Well, so I literally, like, just before, in order to prepare for this webinar, I actually bought a $500 worth of a cryptocurrency just to see what it was like. And then I just watched it because the price changed. Cryptocurrencies are never offline. You know, it's not like the market that closes. So the price of cryptocurrencies, individual cryptocurrencies, is always moving, especially because, you know, these other global people, I mean, the Koreans are busy trading it as we're all asleep. So you go to sleep and then, you know, the price is always moving. So I bought it. I'm not going to tell you which one because I really don't want to get into like, you should buy this one and not that one. And then, you know, I woke up the next day and I was like, oh, I made some money. So I sold it. I made 20 bucks. I mean, it's that easy. Like these interfaces make it really easy. You're just looking at the price and the price is either going up or down. And and most of these interfaces show you, this is the price you bought at. This is what percentage you're either up or down. You know, do you want to sell it now? Do you want to buy more? I mean, these interfaces are so user-friendly. They're almost too easy. So this whole investing decision has become too easy, too much of a game for younger people, I think. But on Coinbase and Robinhood, it really is just that easy. And you can always see what you purchased and you can always see if it's gone up or down. But that's a great question. Thank you I got to keep it simple, right? So now I remember the whole Dogwood Books thing is that I was asking the ladies there, since they know about the investing discussion group, what they wanted to see. And one of them said, you know, I really want to see, you know, how do you help someone who's going through a divorce? And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. We've never done that before. Now, I don't know anything about the legality of like it's not like if you're facing divorce, who's entitled to what, you know, it's not that, but it's like, if you're going to go through a divorce and you're older and all of a sudden you're going to be handed half of the IRA and you've never really managed it before, like, what would you be looking for? You know, once it's all settled, what's your comfort zone? So really, we just want to hear from you guys. And again, I'm harping on this because people go to the YouTube and they watch these videos. And so hopefully, you know, another 40 people are that like these topics are gonna weigh in. But we really wanna hear what you like for next year, what books you like. I really like Bond King. I really like even Atomic Habits is a great one because if you have the right habits around investing, then you'll do well. I really like Psychology of Money, Random Walk Down Wall Street, maybe even The Black Swan, any of those things where they sort of these ideas are fooled by randomness, the idea that, you know, sometimes you think you know what you're doing in investing and it's just random. Anyway, would love to hear from you, kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com or email Young Wong. She put her email in the chat. And yeah, and we're looking forward to a really great next year. And if you have a book idea, you could just put it in the chat right now. Or again, email me, kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com, or email Young, which is YWANG@greenwichlibrary.org. So.
Oh, hi, Kristen. I would like to add that also next year, we plan to do a demo of our two databases for investment, Value Line and Morningstar. So people can do the research.
Right, the demos of the resources, the amazing resources that the library has. So if you want to research investments, the library has resources that people usually have to pay very high subscription fees for, like a Bloomberg terminal, right?
Yeah, we have Bloomberg, but we cannot do demo for Bloomberg because that's a special terminal. But we can show our data. Yeah, for Bloomberg, you can use 1 hour per day. And we have that the library open from 9 to 9 from Monday through Friday, Saturday 9 to 5, Sunday 1 to 5. So we have lots of time. So we have two basically database. One is a Value Line, that is for individual stocks, and Morningstar for research for mutual fund. And if you're looking for corporate bonds, we have another one you can only use inside the library. That's called S&P Net Advantage. But Value Line and Morningstar you can access from home if you have Greenwich Library card.
Okay, great. That's great. All right, well, if we don't have any more questions, then, please just think about what you want to see next year. Some of the really popular topics this year, what your financial advisor isn't telling you, the myth that bonds are safe, why did that stock price move? Yeah, just think about what you would most like us to do. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Email either to Kristen or to me your suggestion, what you want to talk about next year and what book you want to read. And otherwise, wish everyone have a wonderful summer. And
thank you.
See you again in September.
Yeah, have a great time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.